All right. Thank you so much for being here today, Mario. I want to ask you, leading up to the race, how soon do drivers start to look at what the weather forecast will be?
Oh, that's first and foremost, quite honestly, because that's one thing you have to adapt to, and even mentally, there's not much you can do otherwise, obviously. But if when it comes to different places, if it's Indianapolis, obviously, if it's overcast, it's going to be better for everyone as far as the grip because the sun, obviously heats up the tarmac, and then so the track is going to be slicker. But the big factor is the wind, because the wind is something that is more unpredictable. Of course, that the wind sucks, and you know which direction is coming in the corners, and you know what you have to do, to defend from it, and you have to defend from it. There are other places like on the road courses, for instance. There we we drive rain or shine. And so you talk about adapting. You have to be ready to make some setup changes, and of course everything changes when between dry and wet. So it's yeah, the weather is as big a deal as anything else when it comes to be able to maintain the peak performance by adapting properly. At Indy, as I said, because of the high speed. The wind really plays a big factor because of that. Again, it just changes the behavior of the car, and whether it's entry or exit of the corners, and to prepare for that is all important, because if you don't, it's too late, then you have to either back off or whatever, and you lose performance. So absolutely, the weather is a factor, huge.
You talk a lot about the winds. If you're driving, what changes are you making then, like on the fly? What things are you doing differently to react to the wind?
It's the approach to the corner. It's either, it's going to affect you more either on entry or exit. And you have to be prepared for that, because then you use a different line to the corner. You either take a wide apex or just to go in straight, or depending on just what you're trying to do, whether it's going to affect you entering or exiting the corners. And it's all important to be able to really read that factor, and because again, otherwise you would just have to get out of the throttle and and lose performance, lose speed. You got to try to trick the wind. That's what you got to try to do. And you know what? It affects us. Some drivers really hate it, and some drivers actually like it to some degree, because they probably feel that they're confident enough that they know how to compromise. So it's another factor that can play for you or against you. So, and you like to think that, I got this handle, and gives you that little bit of confidence that I think I got one up on these guys,
How much, when you think back to when you were driving through today, obviously our weather technology has advanced so much. Are there differences in how the preparations are made today? It seems we know so much more about the weather. Do you think that's true?
Well, we know so much more on the prediction. It's more accurate and all that, but it's the reaction that is asked of you at the moment. I mean, it doesn't do me much good to know what's going to happen tomorrow, the night before. It's just how you react. You don't know sometimes whether the wind is going to be gusty or sustained, and you're only going to know that at the time, at the moment. And then sometimes even, the race, we talk about Indy, the race is, around, 2.5 hours or something like that. And so in that time, sometimes you get a wind shift also. So you think you got one side set up. At Indy, I had the favorite wind and unfavorite wind. Everybody has that. And again, if the wind is out of the north, you just you know what to do, or out of the south. East is no good. West, to me, the wind out of the west was the worst wind, because it really affects turn two and all that. The best wind for me was always out of the south. And so that's the way I looked at it. Other guys look at it differently, I suppose, but I'm not sure. The reason is if I had a tailwind, if I had to have a tailwind, because that's when you had the least amount of downforce. And the easiest corner for me was turn three. And so I said, okay, I welcome that. Going into turn one, tailwind in turn one, it was always a bit precarious. But that's the way I looked at it. And that's the only thing I know how it affected me, obviously. But I welcome practice days with wind. And many of the drivers say, oh yeah, it's too windy or something like that. And they're not going to bother, because I always felt that I learned something. And it's a factor that you don't know if it's going to be there on race day. So you want to prepare yourself. And I welcome, even during testing when we used to do a lot of tire testing and so forth, I always welcomed that day where it was, a big naughty, we had to work harder, but I felt, I'm learning something. I'm learning something different. I'm learning how to deal with Mother Nature now, not just the car, everything else that's thrown at me, but now I got to deal with Mother Nature. And that's important, because that's the most unpredictable part of our sport.
Yeah, it seems like that's the smart move. Get more experience in encountering those conditions to make you a better driver. That makes total sense for me. If you had to pick, you mentioned there about wind direction and things like that. If you had to pick just an overall ideal Indy 500 racing forecast, temperature-wise, wind-wise, what would that ideal forecast be?
Would be 72 degrees, overcast, and about no more than 5 miles an hour wind. I don't care which direction it comes from. I'll take that.
Why are the temperature and the cloud cover so important? Why do you pick those?
Well, because obviously there you don't worry about the weather. You just worry about everything else. But then, when I said this, if you feel that maybe you can handle a wind situation, potentially even in your own mind, better than others, maybe you'd want to have some of that, because when the forecast would be ideal, like I said, everybody can handle that. So now I'm just actually I'm contradicting myself, to some degree. If I were to wish something was a nice, beautiful situation like that for me qualifying, and as soon as I'm done qualifying, let the wind blow.
Do you want the clouds just so you don't have the sun shining in you? What's the reasoning there?
No, that the cloud, believe it or not, if it's a broken cloud situation, do you know that say we're qualifying day, and it's you have broken clouds. If the minute you go out, all of a sudden you have a cloud cover, that might give you a 1/10 of a second in your pocket in a corner, believe it or not. Wow. It's that fickle. And that's a fact, 100%. Just because of what happens, the sun is what draws the oil from the rubber that's laid down from the tarmac. And if it's cloud, that stays this, like more solid. And you have no idea what difference that makes for the grip. And so, yes, why is it that at the end of the day, say at Indianapolis, you practice from 11 to 6, and why is it that from 5 to 6 is the best time of the day usually? Because the sun factor is the weakest. And but like I said, the only thing is that when it's like that, it benefits everybody. So, you gain no advantage. But if the situation is precarious where you have a lot of wind, not everybody can deal with that the same way. So, as I say to myself, that's why you practice, when conditions are at the worst, to be able to potentially deal with that if it's thrown at you when everybody else has to deal with it. So it's always trying to get any type of advantage you can possibly can, from wherever, wherever you can, you can try to, to learn something that somebody else maybe has not been able to deal with, or opportunity.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I did not know that about the clouds and the sun and the effect that would have. That's a brand new fact for me.
100%.
You mentioned that your preferred temperature in the 70s. Is that just for comfort, or is that also have a correlation to the equipment, the track?
Well, like I said, all of it. I mean, it plays always. It's more comfort, obviously. The ambient temperature has a lot to do with cockpit temperature, which is a driver factor. I mean, you could have a swing 30, 40 degrees in the cockpit just by not having sun beat down on you. So, a lot of that but like I said, every little bit, every little bit counts, on the plus or the minus side.
Can you tell me about a time where you feel that weather impacted your race?
Well, myself personally,
Yes.
I think it did, yes, and I can tell you when. It was in 1992. Actually, I crashed because of that. It was probably one of the coldest days that I remember in my career. And it was a brutal day in that sense that what caught me out was that I was running, I think it was top 3 before a yellow came out. And so a yellow comes out, and we had a glitch during the stop. And so all of a sudden, instead of being third and maybe, going exiting the pits at third place, all of a sudden I'm back on the field, and I was so upset. But I was thinking, well, because every time when I come out of the pits, I always do a big burnout to be able to scuff the rear tires first, because they, we don't, a cold tire, doesn't really perform. This time, what I did, I figured, well, it doesn't make any difference because I'm assuming I'm going to the back of the field, but it's still under yellow. So I didn't want to put the stress in the gearbox and everything. So I went out gingerly out of the pits, but it was so cold that I was in the back of my mind, I got to pass at least 10 cars before we get to start finish line, because when they gave the green, I was still in turn 3, because it's a long field, but anyway, I was overzealous, and I came into turn 4. I was under about 3 or 4 cars, and of course, because of cold tires, I crashed big, and I broke some bones and whatever, and I was out of the race. So that definitely weather played a huge factor there. If it would have been a sunny day, I would have probably been okay.
Wow. Was that a 500 or that was another race?
During the 500
Wow.
at Indianapolis, 1992.
Wow.
I wound up in a hospital because of the cold weather.
Oh, and you think you'd have a little bit better luck, even in Indianapolis in late May. You think you'd do a little bit better than a cold day, but we know it happens. It's been cold here this spring, that's for sure.
Yeah.
How about, let's talk about rain for the 500 especially. Is any bit of rain a non-starter? Can you race with even a little, or what happens there?
Yeah, on any oval, rain, everything stops, because we don't have a rain tire for oval tracks. So with the slick tire, any bit of rain, a few drops, boom, yellow goes on, and you cannot race. On the road courses, however, it's different. On the road courses, we have a rain tire that, if the track obviously is fully wet, that's what you revert to, and the show continues. So that's the difference. But on an oval, there's no rain tire that actually could stay under you, at those high speeds through the corners.
Now for the race this year, I assume you will be in Indy in person. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes.
How are you? What are your feelings? What are your emotions about, the atmosphere this year? It's going to be, closer to a normal race than the past couple runnings have been. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, we have, I like to feel that we have a lot of skin in the game, with following obviously Michael's team, and then my grandson Marco, he's only doing one race, one IndyCar race this year, and then that's it. And he's going to be at Indy. And so I'll be in his pit, just cheering him on throughout practice, qualifying, and so on and so forth. And I drive almost every day with a two-seater as well. So, I'll be plenty busy, which is the way I like it, and very much involved in all of it, if you will. And on top of everything else, I've become a cheerleader during the race.
That's a good role, right?
That's a good role.
Do you think, how will Elio's run at the Chance for Five change things this year?
Well, you know what? Everybody has, something to accomplish, something either new, something different. Records can be broken, as you can see. That's in his hands and his team's hands. So everybody has a specific objective. Is it going to be your first win? Is it going to be your best finish? Is it going to be anything? But there's always something very meaningful for every driver that is in that field to accomplish. And again, when you look at what fans are looking forward to, let's see if Elio's the only one, out there that can accomplish this, be the fifth winner, and so everybody be watching. Many people, he has a lot of fans will be watching that as well, and then I'll be watching for my grandson to win his first. There you go.
Well, we know from the Kentucky Derby this weekend, anything can happen, right?
That was amazing to watch. But that's racing, right. That's the beauty of it. That's what makes it exciting. Absolutely. The unpredictability.
Absolutely. Well, that's all I have from my end. Is there anything we missed that you'd like to add in?
I think we covered pretty well.
Yeah, I think so too. I really appreciate your insight and info. I learned a lot, and our viewers will learn a lot too. So thank you so much, Mario.
My pleasure, Nicholas.
Enjoy the 500 this year. So long.
So long.